It's another Sunday afternoon, and this is the Signature Show. I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo. Last week on this program, we joined other well-meaning Nigerians in calling for the immediate release of journalist Tony Ezimako, who was illegally detained by the DSS. We are happy that bowing to pressure from Nigerians, especially the media and civil society, the DSS did the right thing and released Ezimako some days back. On Thursday, 8th of March 2018, Amnesty International celebrated the release of the journalist who is the Abuja bureau chief of the daily independent newspapers, in conjunction with other civil society organizations. Linus Aleke covered the event for the Signature Show.
The country director of Amnesty International Nigeria, Barrister Sayo Jigo, has appealed to government to respect and uphold the freedom of information. Jigo made the charge in Abuja during the celebration of the release of Abuja bureau chief of the daily independent newspapers, Mr. Tony Ezimako, was held by the DSS for allegedly writing a story that did not go down well with the government.
Who would have thought a few years ago that speech, and even the label hate speech, is relative? We need to interrogate that hate speech. What does it entail? What is inside it that determines the right for someone to take another person's life? And put that within the context that we're going in. We would require everyone to be able to participate in this, but most importantly, to increase their knowledge about what freedom of expression really is.
Amnesty International Nigeria researcher Mr. Damian Ugwu appealed to the media to join the organization in demanding for the release of Abiri Jones, the editor of the Source magazine, who has been in DSS detention for over 2 years without formal trial. Adding that the organization will not rest until Abiri Jones is released to his family. The executive director of Citizen Advocacy for Social and Economic Rights, Barrister Frank Tietie, said the media has the constitutional duty to inform the public and hold government accountable.
Every professional journalist who knows his onions must stand up and exercise his rights under Section 22 of the Constitution and continue to write stories that are true to facts and true stories that will expose corruption and ineptitude in governance.
On his part, the freed journalist, Mr. Tony Ezimako, who said that press freedom was sacrosanct, noted that the detention came to him as a surprise. He expressed his heartfelt gratitude to those who fought for his release, especially the media and the civil society community in the country.
I'm so emotionally subdued considering the kind of response and reception that has been thrown up by this particular incident. I'm so glad and happy. But first, let me thank God Almighty, who stirred up a global tempest of sorts that moved people towards the consciousness of securing my release.
Today on the show, we are returning to the northeastern part of Nigeria, where millions of Nigerians are still waiting for good news concerning the 110 girls abducted by Boko Haram insurgents from their school in DAPCHI in YOBE State. We had an interview with the senator representing YOBE East Senatorial District, BUKAR ABBA IBRAHIM. We also spoke to an expert on counter-terrorism, OKOROGBO, and sought the opinion of Nigerians on how the federal government is handling the rescue operation. This same hunger for good news brought some parents of the kidnapped DAPCHI girls to Abuja to plead with the powers that be to do the needful and rescue the missing girls.
Muhammadu Buhari a taimaka mana dan Allah dan Annabi a fito mana da yaran mu a taimaka mana yaran mu an sace mana ya ta Fatima Bashir ni ce uwarta Asha Kundiri Dabci a taimaka mana dan Allah dan Annabi muna roƙon ku arziki shugabannin mu a taimaka mana yara ƙanana an sace mana yara sama da 107 a taimaka mana a fito mana da su dan Allah.
One of mother that adopted children. I want government to help us to bring us our daughters.
Gamman Girls Science Secondary School Dapchi. I miss 3 daughters. 2 in front is my child's. 1 is my senior brother. I miss them. We are not come to emphasize the government. We need the government to go and bring back our girls. That's why we want government to take action on it. And the issue of the security. We have the soldiers at Dapchi. 3 weeks ago they packed them, and then this thing will happen. So we don't know the reasons that these things will always happen in our area, more especially the East South. So please, we are begging. We are not coming here to criticizing the government. We are not coming for criticizing the government. We just pleading the government, please and please. We put our crying to the government that to say that at least he go and bring back our girls to our parents and the rest of the women.
My daughter was abducted on the day she was admitted. On the day she was admitted, I lost her just within 7 to 8 hours. And she was 12 years old, JSS 1. I admitted her on that day, and on that day this thing happened. So I don't know, I have nothing to say. Being a Muslim, I consider this thing as an act of God. But we are calling on the government, if this thing continues to be happening in this country, more especially in the Northeast region, one day you'll discover that there's no functional secondary school. Because these are the things that are happening. Please and please, we are begging, we are pleading to the Nigerian government and the international community, please, to come to our aid and help our children to come and join their partners at home, please and please.
Are you 18 years and above? Have you registered with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC? Do you have your permanent voter card, PVC? If your answer is yes, what about your family members, your friends, your colleagues, and your neighbors? Remember, your vote can guarantee a better future for Nigeria and Nigerians. Your vote can make all the difference. Your vote is your power. Don't sit on the fence. Be an active citizen. This is a signature show contribution to better citizen participation in governance.
For what has happened since the unfortunate abduction of the DAPCHI girls, we turned to a former governor of YOBE State and currently the senator representing YOBE East, where DAPCHI is located. I started by asking him to share with us the latest information he might have concerning the rescue efforts by the federal government.
And the DAPCHI happens to be in my constituency. DAPCHI is just about 85 kilometers from Damaturu, the state capital of YOBE State. And that school, which was disturbed or attacked by suspected Boko Haram dissidents, is basically under Damaturu until recently, when a local government was created, and then DAPCHI became local government headquarters, the first moving to the north after Damaturu. And this is an area, anything from the north of Damaturu, the state capital of YOBE State, and a parallel area of Borno State, taking it northwards, are areas where education, Western education, has not yet been fully accepted. People still resist their children going to school. Some will even bribe teachers and headmasters in order not to take their children to school, unlike other parts of Nigeria where people pay a lot of money to take their children to school, right from primaries through secondary to the university and other tertiary institutions. So that is why that school was made a girls' school, girls' only school, and a boarding school with nearly 1,000 girls, mainly from that northern part of Borno and Yobe, where people are still resisting Western education. So it is very, very unfortunate that such an area should be attacked by dissidents. I mean, an attack on any community, on any group, on any individual by anybody is wrong, of course. But then this has become even more serious when an area where girls' education is not fully accepted yet is attacked. That will really make things difficult for us politicians who are trying to convince each and every person in those areas to take their children to school, whether boys or girls. And as you know, the rest of the story is all what we have been reading in the papers. 926 children were attacked, out of which, at the end of it all, to cut a very long story short, 110 of them were still unaccounted for. And 110 children, girls only, are still unaccounted for. And we're waiting, we're praying, we're intensifying our prayers left, right, and center all over the mosques and churches in that area. And even here in Abuja, we've organized similar prayers for them. We just hope and pray that we'll get them all unharmed. And in a way, this has been a bit fortunate, because so far no girl had been killed by the abductors. We're not aware of any killing, which is different from the Chibok incidents people have been talking so much about, and all other attacks by Boko Haram suspects, where definitely some lives were lost. In this particular one, so far, no life is officially known to have been lost. But the fact that 110 children, girls only, are still unaccounted for, your guess is as good as mine. We just hope and pray that they will all be found safe and sound, and we'll do the rest by convincing parents to still believe in education, believe that education is the backbone of all developments wherever you are in this world.
Since this happened, there's no doubt, and being in your district, there's no doubt that you've been engaging with the executive, the government, and even the security agencies. Besides what we read in the papers, what else has happened in terms of locating these girls, in terms of probably negotiations, in terms of probably efforts to rescue them?
Honestly, I don't have any such privileged information so far, but all I know is the government of the state, and indeed the federal government, are definitely not resting on their oars until something is done to solve this problem once and for all. I don't have details of what negotiations that are going on, but definitely they are talking. There's no doubt about the fact that they are talking. My wife, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of State, has been there twice since this thing happened. First, as a member of the federal government delegation, and secondly, to go and condole some people in the state. She was in Maiduguri, Damaturu, and back the same day. So there is nothing really besides what we have been reading that has happened so far. The federal government reacted in good time. The state government reacted in good time. People generally reacted in good time. People have been embarking on massive prayers for them in churches and mosques all over the state, and in some areas even outside the state. Like we have a similar group carrying out massive prayers for them in my house here in Maitama. So far, there's nothing new, nothing unknown, nothing hidden in this matter.
Distinguished Senator, are you not disturbed that we are still talking about a situation like DAPCHI at this time? I mean, we've been fighting insurgency for several years now. Are you not really embarrassed that we are talking about DAPCHI and this situation now?
Over a week since it happened, really it is very embarrassing. It is very disturbing. It is worrisome. It is something that has really agitated the minds of our people, particularly those who, in the first place, were not interested in Western education. As I said earlier, it certainly is disturbing. It certainly is a setback for us. It's a setback for development of education in YOBE State, particularly women education, girl child education. But we will have to redouble our efforts and ensure that this is not something strange all over the world. Such and similar things have happened. The world is no more a safe place for anybody. We just have to be security conscious. We just have to make arrangements, particularly in schools now. Schools in YOBE, schools in Borno and surrounding areas where education is not well accepted should have security all the year round. Generally, I believe the security agents in Nigeria are not adequate. Nigeria is not adequately secured by security agents, particularly the police and the army and all other security agencies. We need more. A country of 180 million needs a lot more security people than we have on the ground. And not only is it necessary for us to have them on the ground, but also to continue to be security conscious all the time. It is when people see the activities of security agents, the usefulness of security agents, the continuous campaign for security, that people will become conscious of their security and the security of the young ones, like the schoolboys and schoolgirls. So it is very, very disturbing. But then here we are. We just need to double up and intensify our efforts as a country.
Since this happened, the Senate has not gone to sleep. What measures did the Senate put in place to put pressure on those whose duty it is to ensure that these young girls are recovered and rescued? What has the Senate done?
Well, what we have done so far was that I brought a motion on the floor of the Senate. You know, we went through the usual debates when such things happen. And at the end of the day, we appealed to the state government and the local government and the federal government to do more. And I believe as a result of this call and other calls left, right, and center all over Nigeria, because this matter has disturbed the whole of this country. And because of this, the chief of air staff, for example, is now resident in Maiduguri. The chief of army staff is almost resident in Maiduguri as well. A lot of military people have been sent to the area, including our neighboring countries of Niger in particular, and part of Chad and part of Cameroon, and surrounding states, states that are surrounding YOBE State. We all have military people all over. There are about, last week, 28 helicopters and military aircraft that were being used in searching for these girls who have not been accounted for, 110 of them. And I hope and pray and believe that they will soon be found, inshallah. The federal government is not taking this matter lightly. In fact, even right now, Mr. President himself has started going around some of the states in that area, Taraba, YOBE, Borno, Bauchi, and so on and so forth. So it is very disturbing, but it has happened. We only need to be conscious of our security. We only need to do more to avoid such occurrences in the future.
Well, in other places, when this happened, or when something like this happened, the security agencies and the executive take the senators' the legislators into confidence and do special briefing, you know, to bring them up to speed with the security measures being taken. Has there been any kind of security briefing for you and your colleagues by the agencies?
Any special security briefing for this particular instance, but the House and the Senate have both called on ministers responsible and ministers in charge of environment, ministers in charge of defense, and so on and so forth, have been called to plenary for behind the camera meeting with both chambers of the National Assembly, after which I believe some releases will be made. I only hope and pray that before even that happens, which will be very close, very near, maybe within this week, we will get them, we'll find them. But whether we'll get them or not, they will still come and brief us, definitely. And for now, they haven't. Everybody's attention has so far been on how to get them. And briefing alone can hardly bring them back. The fact that they are on the ground, physically, in this whole of that area, I think is reassuring. It's good enough for us to have confidence. But as I said earlier, we really don't have enough security people in this country today.
That leads me to what your recommendations should be, because, you know, we're all upbeat, we're all a little relaxed, being told by our government that Boko Haram has been degraded, the effectiveness of Boko Haram had been reduced to the barest minimum, and then this happens. You are a very seasoned administrator. You may not be an army general, but you know a lot about this country. Yes. What would your recommendations be as we move forward, so that we don't keep going around in circles, you know, because the APC came with this kind of trust by Nigerians that the military officer is in charge and that we can't go back to the dark days?
My recommendation would really be for us to do more of the good things we have been doing, particularly on security. Security is the number one issue in any country. The security and welfare of the people is the essence of governance anywhere in the world. So I believe, as I said earlier, we need more security people. We need to take in more policemen. We need to have more military. And we also need to have more of the paramilitary people we are working with as a nation. You look at our huge population, what we have on the ground really is not adequate. While this is going on, the federal government agencies and the state government agencies on the ground should intensify their search for these girls in and around Nigeria. Nigeria as a nation needs a lot more security people than what we have on the ground now. I keep on saying this because I know it needs more than what we have on the ground. And of course, at the end of the day, prayers also helps. Whether you're Muslim or Christian, you believe in prayers, and we need to carry out more prayers. We also need to have some understanding, we really need to sit with some of these dissidents, some of these people who are rebelling against society, and try to understand them and see how we can have peace, overall peace in the country. I know there is no country in the world where you don't have problems here and there, but I think we should bring it down to the minimum level, as you rightly said. A lot have been done. At a certain stage, almost the whole of Borno was under Boko Haram. 2 local governments in my state, one of them is my own local government, were under control of Boko Haram for 24 months. 2 good years. I couldn't go home. Nobody could go home. They were totally controlling those states, those local governments. In Borno, out of 27, almost 26, besides Maiduguri, were under total control of Boko Haram until they were gradually and eventually liberated. The reason why they talk about Boko Haram being degraded, Boko Haram being defeated, and so on and so forth, was because at a certain stage there were so many local governments in the northeast which were totally under control of Boko Haram. Today, there is not a single local government which is totally under the control of Boko Haram. They only do hit and run, guerrilla warfare here and there. And in many cases, even that school they went to, the first place they went to was the kitchen. They were hungry, they were looking for food. Because they were suspected to be armed Boko Haram, and of course they were carrying guns, the children just erupted and went into the bush. They didn't go there to kill anybody. And I don't believe they went there specifically to abduct anybody.
So
but having gotten
about the abduction?
Having gotten food and security agents running after them, they had to do the abduction. So they cannot just go without anybody. Then in that case they will be totally under military control. If now that they have abducted these girls, any soldier, any policeman, any pilot who goes to bomb will be very, very careful not to kill them along with the girls who have been abducted. So that's their own form of defense as well. But in most cases, they are looking for food, in most cases. But their intention, basic intention was, as they keep on saying, to establish an Islamic state in the center of Africa, stretching from some parts of Egypt down to almost the whole of Sudan, almost the whole of Chad, part of Cameroon, the northern parts of Nigeria, Mali, and Niger, the whole of Niger, part of Algeria, and part of Libya, and all this. They want to establish an Islamic state, which, as we all know, we are educated people, we know it's not possible. It is absolutely impossible, but that was their original intention. And when you look at what they intended to do and what position they are in now, you can comfortably say they have been defeated, they have been degraded. They don't control anywhere now. Yeah. They only hit and run. And that kind of thing always takes time to put a stop to. It will take time. Nigerians must be ready to have hit and run Boko Haram attacks here and there for some time. It will go. Definitely it will go away, just like their control has gone away. They don't control anywhere now in all the countries I've just mentioned.
This attack and the increase in hit and run,
yes,
guerrilla attacks,
yes,
has actually slowed down the recovery effort of the Northeast. Because a lot of people international organizations were already talking about post-Boko Haram era.
yes.
And there's a lot of money coming from international donors.
That's true. You'll know more about this when you get to Maiduguri. If you knew Maiduguri in those days and Maiduguri today, what you're saying is absolutely right. So much money and so much international organizations, so many people from outside have come in. As this thing is slowing down, cooling off, definitely other problems will crop up. Particularly if they leave us,
yes,
they go back.
What is the state of people in the IDPs? What is the state of infrastructural renewal? With this diversion or distraction of DAPCHI, how is the recovery effort going?
Well, the recovery effort has definitely been slowed down by the happening in DAPCHI. Even though generally people are going back to their local governments of origin, states of origin, those who ran away, the IDPs are getting smaller and smaller, not bigger. Obviously, the governments are making more and more efforts to feed those in IDPs because they don't have any farms to go. Some of them were not even employed people in the first place. Anyway, they're just petty traders and casual workers. So obviously those ones are still around. But even there, the number is decreasing things are getting slowly, slightly, but definitely better. And as I said earlier, we'll have to get prepared to face this kind of hit and run situations for quite some time to come from now onwards. And so far, alhamdulillah, I've been to Maiduguri several times of recent. Things have changed a lot. State governments in the northeast have gotten a lot of support from other Nigerians and from Nigerians and Nigerian governments within the northeast, and also from others outside the country. You will see an influx of people from Europe and America and Asia and so on and so forth. In Maiduguri, for example, today, almost all the hotels are fully booked. And but the number definitely is decreasing, and calmness is coming down. Peace is gradually returning fully to the whole of the northeast zone, particularly Borno, Borno actually was the biggest part of the northeast that was badly hit by Boko Haram. But even there, recovery, even though slow, is still going on. And we pray that it doesn't last too long.
How can we use the recently promulgated law on the Northeast Development Commission? How can we use it to speed up the rebuilding of the Northeast?
That's a very, very pertinent and very relevant question. The Northeast Development Commission, when it fully takes off, and it has all the structures from top to bottom, will take care of all developmental efforts in the Northeast. Today, there are 6 states in the Northeast, so many local governments in the Northeast, so many efforts are being done, not necessarily in a coordinated manner, and all this will disappear when the Northeast Development Commission fully takes off. That will speed up things, and organizations that are ready to help and that are willing to help and that intend to help will find it easier to do whatever help they want to do through one organization, one big organization, very well known all over the Northeast, than dealing with so many organizations as it is on the ground now. And all the IDPs, if they still exist, will definitely come under one umbrella, and things will definitely get better. And state governments will also find it easier to get a formula of assisting the commission rather than small organizations left, right, and center, so that development will be coordinated. And that's what will basically change. Coordination will be easier with the commission than what we have on the ground now.
This law was signed by Mr. President in October of last year.
Yes.
Why is it not on stream? Why has it not kicked off? What do you know? What do you hear?
That really is a very difficult question to answer, even though it's so relevant, so obvious, so eminent, but I don't know how to answer it. I really don't have any idea why up till now it has not taken off. I think that's something you'll have to, as a journalist, pose it to the federal government of Nigeria. Why has it not taken off, really? Is it lack of people? You know, we have the people. Is it lack of materials? People are assisting. Is it lack of knowledge of what to do? I believe Nigeria has a bad idea about what to do. So I really find it difficult to answer, and I'll advise you, in our interest, all of us' interest, for you to pose this question to the federal government of Nigeria, honestly, why has it not taken off up till now? It's a question everybody asks. And it's a question nobody is in a position to answer yet. But I believe the government will be in a position to answer it.
Thank you, distinguished Senator.
Lawmaker. Thank you very much.
Yes, glad to know you're still with us and with me to look at the way forward under this security challenge situation is Peter OKOROGBO. Good news. Peter OKOROGBO, good news is beyond counter-terrorism expert, and he's here to do justice to the topic. Let me welcome you, Peter, and start by saying, when you say beyond terrorism, what do you mean?
Yes, beyond counter-terrorism is a transcendent narrative for the transformation of the lingering noble approach of counter-terrorism itself.
Okay. And in this beyond counterterrorism, what exactly do we want to do? What do we want to achieve with that?
Yes, it's a soft power approach that seeks to transform or look at the driving values that informs this critical form of terrorism across the globe.
Here we are, weeks after the DAPCHI girls' abduction, and I mean, if you listen to our interview with the distinguished senator, it doesn't look like we know so much about what is going on. What do you think should be the approach right now? You know, people have talked about a combination of the military, the police, and other. What, I mean, from your own counter-terrorism pedestal, how should we go?
Yes, it is a composite approach, actually. All the stakeholders has to come on board to look at these issues, but primarily we have to look at the driving values, and that is where we are more concerned, because no matter how it is across the globe, there is a thread, a common denominator that is driving these issues. So until we look at this common denominator and see how we can transform it, it is transformable, it is doable, but the authorities must come to a realization that these issues has to be looked into.
Let's break it down. What are those values that you have to work on to transcend this kind of terrorism?
Yeah, you see, actually, terrorism is a wide subject, but I think let us narrow it to this critical form that the world has been at a loss to over the centuries. Even in Europe, in America, they are at a loss to it. The authorities, the civil authorities, will always win the conventional warfare. Professionals, presidents have acknowledged that. Even President Muhammadu Buhari, in his first trip to France in November 2015, he reiterated that. He said that in France when he was hosted by the French president. He said it. He said they are going to win, by November they will win the conventional warfare. But he paused and said bet. And that is the bet. The bet has been the issue. The driving values of this critical form of terrorism.
What are the driving values?
Yes, the driving values, from what we have seen, we've come to know that some of these things are informed by religious values, religious agitation. Let's go back to the former president, Jonathan. Under pressure, he was asked to ask the insurgents what they really wanted, and they came out and said, look, they named what they wanted, and part of it were all religious. That they wanted Jonathan to become a Muslim, they wanted Nigeria Islamized. Yes, they are talking contextually. So the authorities should come out and look at the reality, the feasibility of such demands. And then if it is not feasible, then how do we transform it? Are they right or are they wrong? Even if they are wrong, then how do we transform it? Because these things predates President Muhammadu Buhari. It predates even this generation. It predates, this thing has lasted, this thing has been informed for the past 500 or 700 years. It's not something that just started a century ago. It's been there. Even predicted by Jesus Christ himself. In John 16:2b, I've always said that. And President Jonathan, in one of his speeches, he quoted one of the things we said in his speech. That Jesus was talking. In John 16:2, he said, the days are coming when those who kill you will think that they are doing God's service. So, and all these things is happening under the disguise of the religions of Abraham. And God is not the author of confusion. So where are we getting it wrong? These people are contextually correct. When Jesus, look at the statement Jesus made, he said they will think that they are doing God's service. So if they are making such a demand, well, we have to look at the demands and look for those who can do it. If I'm saying that I can do it, and yes, that is what we are doing in Beyond Counterterrorism. Beyond Counterterrorism is simply a divine counsel in contemporary parlance to transform these driving values we're talking about, which has been a puzzle, a global puzzle to the world with a global application.
Okay, let's zoom into what you said about Jonathan asking them what they wanted. I guess what you were talking about is engaging them,
Yes.
talking, negotiation,
Even if you
and what
cannot
have
meet
you.
them and all that.
And at that point, our government was talking to Boko Haram. But when we started having 1, 2, 3, I think the government got a little confused.
Yeah.
What are you suggesting? Because we have, I mean, unofficially, but our investigations show that, for instance, the Boko Haram that took the DAPCHI girls is not the Boko Haram that is controlled by Shekau.
You see, there's always bound to be faction in every organization. But what we must look at is the underlying driving force. What is informing their drive? They can be up to 20 factions. Just like you are looking at terrorism across the globe. You have different factions from different quarters and different types of terrorism. So what is driving it? Is this issue of justice? Is it social economic? Is it religious? We must look at this issue.
A lot of people say that almost everything you said is part of it, socio-economic, religious, and all that.
Agreed.
So how do we get out of it?
The issue is this. Yes, there are so many factors informed, but we must dissipate. We must differentiate between primary factors and secondary factors.
What are the primary and what are the secondary?
Yes, these are the areas where I think the government has to come in and bring those who claim they didn't know. And if anybody tells you he has a solution, then one of the tests of those solutions also should be whether that solution has a global application. So we are talking about the factors. Yes, there are so many factors. Some people will tell you that these people, they are illiterates and all that. What about people who buy those guns? Are they illiterates? People who produce the money, are they illiterates? Are they villagers? No, they are not. So there is a driving value. I've always insisted on this. I pray that one of the days we'll be able to get right to the right stakeholders and make them understand that this thing is feasible, it can be done. But not the way they are approaching it. I commend our security officers, honestly, because they are trying the best that they could with the hard power. But the soft power approach is still not doing the right job.
Okay, let me ask you, is there an international connect? Because you see another form of terrorism in a country like the United States,
yes,
where every day you see citizens, some with no known history of violence, open fire on children, open fire on moviegoers, open fire on human beings.
Yes.
Is there a connection? Is there a global connection in what Boko Haram is doing, what they are doing in areas like Kenya, El-Shabaab, and all this? Is there some connect? Is it a global problem that is connecting all of them?
Oh yes, there is a connect, but it's dimensional. Like we said earlier, you see, there are forms of terrorism informed by different values. But in this case, there is a connect. The connect is dimensional, like I said. And you see, what is driving Boko Haram is the same factors that is driving Al-Shabaab, that is driving the Muslim Brotherhood and all that. So there is a connect to it. And that's why I said earlier that if anybody says he has a solution, the test of that solution should be whether it has a global application. Because if you are going to address Boko Haram here, that same solution should be able to address the same critical form of terrorism that is now pervading Europe and the US, and even Al-Shabaab and ISIS and all that. So if whatever anybody is profiling does not have that application, that global dimensional application, then it's not having a solution.
Are you 18 years and above? Have you registered with the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC? Do you have your permanent voter card, PVC? If your answer is yes, what about your family members, your friends, your colleagues, and your neighbors? Remember, your vote can guarantee a better future for Nigeria and Nigerians. Your vote can make all the difference. Your vote is your power. Don't sit on the fence. Be an active citizen. This is a signature show contribution to better citizen participation in governance.
Still on the DAPCHI kidnap, time to hit the streets to get the opinion of Nigerians on the handling of the rescue efforts by the federal government.
Well, I don't want to talk about the government because the government is a sham. So if the government is a sham, then what do you talk about?
The only thing It's just very difficult. It's really very difficult. There are a lot of issues. It's not just the Chibok girls. The even issue on corruption, even the change mantra. There's no direction, there's no vision, I think there's a leadership issue. So if they say there's a Chibok girls, to what extent is it true? Is there anything like Chibok girls? Is there anything like abduction in the first place? If some girls are adopted, why is government not addressing it? So I think government is, by and large, government is a charade, and it's not working well. They're not just getting it.
The issue of adoption in Nigeria, most of what is happening in the northeast, you ask yourself a question: how truth is this adoption of a thing? So you find out that all these things are just scam. They just plan all this, root all these things in order to, castigate each other. So all about this thing, more especially what this APC government is doing, you find out that there is no reality in whatever thing they are doing. There is no reality. What we need a true leadership so that we carry the people along. When people are crying, you know that people are crying.
From the last dispensation, when the one in Chibok happened, to this one, I haven't seen any change in the style of governance, and I haven't seen anything that is different. So how do you expect us to find this? We are still doing this in an analog manner. So how do you expect us to find these people who were adopted recently when we have not found the ones who are adopted before? So we are moving around in one circle, just in one point. So I don't expect anything new or anything to change. Rather, it's still the same story.
The government needs to wake up. President Buhari, I'm admonishing you, you need to wake up. You said something in your campaign. During your campaign, you said what it means to be a leader, a responsible leader, is that when anything goes wrong, you will fix it. And that's the meaning of responsibility. And that was why we voted you in. Now, going after 2-3 years after we got you in, President Buhari, the result we are seeing do not measure up to the campaign promise. Trust me, this is not being pessimistic, and I'm being objective. We need you to wake up to the reality of Nigeria is highly insecure now, and we need you to be on top of situations.
I'm begging government to do something fast and quicker before the water overflow the bank. So look at, they were still talking that they kidnapped some girls during the Jonathan government at Chibok girls. The girls are still looking for them now, and many girls still missed last 3 weeks ago at DAPCHI. And that very missing girl up till now, from security personnel, police, DSS, government personnel, no official come to the Nigerian for you to know where about of those girls, and they're human being. Even if I'm government, your king go to school not come back, can you be happy? No. So we're begging government to take serious issue about security in Nigeria.
Since the mantra the government came in with is change, not only change, fighting corruption and security, you understand, and I don't see the security in this country. You see people dying every day here and there and all that. Government is not sitting up on it, you understand. And this last adoption, they said the military withdrew. After the military withdrawal, the adoption took place. That means there is something is going on that they are not telling us. That's my opinion. Something is going on that they are not telling us. They need to tell us the truth, what is going on in this country, before this country will turn into another thing. Because people are sick and tired of all this.
But he came out to say some of them have been rescued. So from there, the handwriting is on the wall. It's boldly written on the wall that there's going to be failure, not just a failure, but a gross failure from the people we thought they are going to protect us. It's quite unfortunate that up till now, there is no statement from the government in respect of those people that were kidnapped from DAPCHI. But hopefully, we're thinking something will be done. But it shouldn't be like the one of the Chibok girls.
You can feel the frustrations of the ordinary Nigerian on the street, and almost everyone we spoke to on the program today. There is no doubt that the authorities are making efforts to rescue our girls. But I think that what Nigerians really are saying is that the government needs to do more. They don't want to just listen to promises, they want action. And they are scared of the Chibok experience, and they know that every day that passes by makes it more difficult to secure the release of these girls. Secondly, Mr. President should, as a matter of urgency, give life to the Northeast Development Commission immediately, so there can be a coordinated effort to not only alleviate the sufferings in the region, but also to quicken the rebuilding and development of the Northeast region. The people have suffered for so long and suffered so much. They need a new beginning, and our government needs to do something and do it quickly. Well, that's our program for today. Don't forget that we are online on signaturetv.com.ng for your 247 news, and also if you want to see this program again or watch our other editions. You can also reach us on our social media platforms, Twitter, WhatsApp, Facebook. You can also email us. And from the Signature Show Studios in Abuja, Nigeria, I am Vin Martin Obiora Ilo, thanking you for watching and asking you to keep a date with us at 2 p.m. next Sunday.